That's my best attempt to make the anxiety face, emoji face. Maybe I should make a better thumbnail than that. Hey guys, I'm gonna jump right into this year with talking about my experience with anxiety. That sounds like a good plan. This is a video. Quite honestly, I just haven't been ready to film, or willing to film, or interested in filming. Maybe I have been interested in it, but I just haven't felt ready to film. And it's my personal story about my journey with generalized anxiety disorder, which I was diagnosed with by a medical professional. I think I was about 25, maybe slightly before that. And how I overcame it and quite honestly healed myself. I don't feel like I can be categorized as having that anymore. I don't feel like anxiety rules my life anymore. I don't feel overwhelmed by it all the time as I once did. I still experience some baseline of anxiety every day, but it is night and day from what it used to be. So I touched on this a little bit briefly in my New Year's goals and reflections video, which I'll throw up in a link for you. It's really long, and basically it's just me saying I'm feeling really good right now. So just, you don't have to watch it. That's all I say basically, but it takes me 40 minutes to do so because yeah, this video is probably gonna be just as long. I'm gonna really try not to let it be. Anyway, I touched on it a bit. I said I'd be, willing to share more about it. I got a little bit of interest in it on the video, but then I got quite a few like DMs sent to me via Instagram asking for more, to talk more about it. I think people, I can understand that, maybe not want to share that they're interested in a public forum and just reach out to me privately. So I thought, you know what? Okay, let's do it. Let's go right ahead. And speaking of which, I'm not one to plug my other social media platforms very often, if ever. I know a lot of people, a lot of YouTubers do. This is my Instagram, this is my blah, 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 follow me here, follow me there. And I understand why they do it, and that's all well and good if that's your bag and that's what you need to do. Fine. I personally, to be quite honest, find it a little bit annoying when somebody's always plugging their whatever to me. I'm just being honest here. I understand it, but it's just like, I'm just like, okay, I get it. If I want to follow you, I will. But I realized that maybe I should mention at least once that I do, lately at least, have been much more active on Instagram. I post almost daily on my stories there, in the Instagram stories. And I've been trying to post more on my timeline, my like main feed. I honestly just forgot for a long time to like post anything there because I got so into stories. So I've been trying to post more on my feed as well. But anyway, all of my social media links and everything is always in my description box. If you guys want to follow me there, that's fine. It's totally up to you, obviously. But I did want to mention that I am more of a, currently active on Instagram. Anyway, so this is going to be a long video. I can already tell because I'm already way off track. Grab a cup of something. I've already drank my coffee. It was delicious. This is my little Erin Condren mug. Isn't it cute? From the winter seasonal surprise box that was sent to me for PR. So cute. I hope they start carrying those. I think those would be great gifts. Anywho, grab a cup of something. Let's chat. Right off the bat, I'm gonna give you a huge fat disclaimer. I am not a medical professional. I'm not a medical expert. I am not a psychological professional or psychological expert. I don't know pretty much anything, really, professionally or expertly. So what I'm sharing here with you is not my advice to you. It isn't. It's what I did for me that helped me. If you feel like some of this resonates with you and you wonder if there might be ways that you can work to work on your anxiety or issues with anxiety or whatever, I highly and strongly suggest that you seek medical assistance, professional assistance, Doesn't have to be a medical doctor. If you feel like it's severe, you might want to start with your general practitioner and get some recommendations from there for a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist. There's many different routes to go. There's many different things you can do. I personally did not ever take medication. I don't think it's wrong to take medication. I think medication exists for a reason, and it can be critically important to many people. So just because I didn't take it doesn't mean you shouldn't. You might need to, want to benefit from it. So first and foremost, get some help from somebody who's been schooled in these things, and don't just take what I say as actual advice. It's not. I'm just sharing my experience here. All right, now that the big fat disclaimer is done, we can jump right in. Little background. I was a pretty, I think, easygoing, kind of natured kid, but always a people pleaser, always wanted to be the best that I could for others. That's been me since birth. I've just been that kind of person. Always overachiever when it comes to school, definitely a perfectionist when it comes to anything that I am kind of like graded on, be it school or, you know, whatever sort of, you know, rating. You know, I always wanted to be an A+, a gold star. I just felt like that gave me a lot of purpose and drive, and I just wanted to be that kind of person, quite honestly, for other people. I don't think my parents ever really pressured me. I don't have that feeling from my childhood of feeling like pressured to excel in academics. I pressured myself. It was definitely a self-driven cycle of perfectionism and academic you know, prowess. I don't know. I just wanted to be really good at school and really good at anything I did. I put myself fully in, you know, like threw myself fully into dance when I was, yeah, I only danced up until I was like 11, but I was really, really, really into it when I was into it. Anything I did, I kind of pursued wholeheartedly, and I felt like I had to perfect and be the best at. Not a competitive person by nature, but definitely very, very self-driven. So that kind of lays the groundwork there. We moved quite a bit as a child. I mean, not like a terrible amount, but I did move quite a few times in my grade school years, just a couple really. And then what really kind of shaped my adolescence was that we moved 3 times when I was in high school. So I went to 3 different high schools across the country. I started my freshman year at a private high school in Northern California. We lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. I went to a public school in a suburb of Boston for my sophomore year of high school. A smaller school, really great school, but public school. And then we landed here in the Midwest in the Chicago suburbs. For my junior and senior year, I went to, that's where I spent my junior and senior year was at one high school. So that was my 3rd high school. Huge, huge high school, extremely academically competitive, in kind, you know, very cliquey, kind of like your typical movie high school experience, I feel like. And so, yes. Moving in high school years was really, really challenging for me. Especially, I think it's a challenging time for any adolescent, just in that period of time between the ages of like 14 and 20. I feel like there's just a lot going on with your brain. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of hormonal changes. It's just, and then a lot of just formative changes, external changes in terms of, you know, going through high school and then graduating and going, you know, if you go to college or going to the workforce or whatever, there's just a lot going on. And then also maturing, you know, in terms of relationships and intimate relationships and all of that. So there's just a lot going on. And there's a lot that I'm not going to touch on in this video because it just would take too long. But I was in a very committed relationship from the age of 16 to 20 with a boy. He was a boy. We were kids at the time, so a boy. That we decided to keep dating even when we started dating in Massachusetts when I lived there in sophomore year. And we decided to continue dating long distance. I do not recommend a teenager to do a long distance relationship. I do not. But again, just my experience. I would not recommend that to my younger self, I would say. But anyway, that played a big role in things as well, because it ended up to turn into a very toxic relationship, and one that was not good for me mentally. So that's another story for another day. I don't know if I'll ever really tell that story either. But anyway, those things all played into this time in my life where for the first time in my life, I went from being a very confident, kind of more easygoing. I wasn't really easygoing in terms of how myself, but I was easygoing in terms of other people. Like I never really felt like I couldn't fit in places or make friends. Like I never had an issue with that until my junior year of high school, where for the first time, I didn't have an easy time making friends. I didn't make friends. Let's see, I started school my junior year in the September, August, or whenever we started school back then, I don't remember. I don't think I made my first friend until March. It was a long time to not have friends in high school. It's a long time. And I've always thrived in friendship groups, individual friendships and stuff like that. Notably, the first friend I made, the first person asked me to come have lunch with them. And up until this point, I ate lunch in front of my locker every day. In the hallway. Let that sink in. It was a sad time. I was kind of a sad person. But anyway, I am still friends with that person today. In fact, she is one of the only friends I have really stayed in constant touch with for this, up to 35, which I am now. And I am so grateful for that. But anyway, it was a difficult time. I definitely battled with depression. Things tied into that I'm not going to really go into because I just don't want to, but it was a difficult emotional time, and I, being the type of person, people pleaser, perfectionist I held all that in. I didn't let any of it show. I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want my parents to know that I was really unhappy. I held all that in, and I think that's when I started to get in a really, really bad habit of holding in what I considered negative emotions. Sadness, anger, whatever wasn't like completely happy or at least complacent, I did not let show. I felt like I had to have this huge armor, this huge mask I had to wear of happiness in order to just survive. And that's what I did. And I think that is what really fed the flames of anxiety for me. I don't know if that's true for other people's experience. That's just kind of where I felt it really start, was in the junior, senior, so I was 16, 17. Depression definitely came first for me. And it's not something that stuck around for long. I had little bouts of it over junior, senior year, and then throughout college, I would say, for the first few years. And then since then, I haven't really had any issues with depression, thankfully, but anxiety has stuck with me. Or at least it did, until I really, really took proactive measures to work on it in my late 20s and early 30s. Anywho, that all fed the flames of my anxiety, and then, I make friends. I had great friends then for the remainder of junior year and senior year. I had a wonderful group of friends that I loved, and it was a wonderful experience, but the foundation was set, and it was just, that's where it all started, and it only escalated. I went to college. I spent my freshman year at NYU. It was my absolute dream to go there. I got in there early admission, so I didn't even have to fully apply anywhere else, because I knew like in October or something that I was going to go there the next year. I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't. I grew up visiting New York City several times a year for my entire childhood because my grandparents lived in Manhattan, right across the street from Carnegie Hall, actually. They've sadly both passed since then, but they both lived into their 90s, so they lived very full lives. And I always enjoyed going to visit them, but I never liked New York City. And especially as I, grew into my anxiety as a teenager and then a young adult, it just got harder and harder for me to be in the city. So why did I feel like I had to go to NYU, which is right smack in the middle of Manhattan? I do not know. But I went there September of 2011. I went to NYU. No. 2001? Oh my gosh, how old am I? I'm so old. Okay, September of 2001. Whoa, I went to NYU. I was there for about a couple of weeks. So much fun, still in that long-term relationship with the boy from sophomore year of high school. Don't ask me why, stupid idea. Anyway, having the time of my life, partying for the first time ever. I was such a goody two-shoes in high school. I didn't drink, I didn't go out. I was friends actually with mostly Mormons, and I was usually home by like 10 o'clock at night, and we did very, like goody two-shoes sorts of things, like go to the movies and go get pie and stuff like that. Like, I was very dependable teenager. Anyway, started partying for the first time, not like hardcore, but just like letting loose a little bit. I loved the classes. I felt like I was in the right place. I loved my roommate, who I'm still in touch with, who, she's great. And it was the greatest couple of weeks. And then 9/11 happened right outside our window of our dorms, and it was just, it was devastating. And again, that's not something I'm going to go into too much here. I've touched on it before in previous videos, but basically watched it happen kind of live from our windows. And that stays with you, especially as a 18-year-old dealing with anxiety, living in a city that definitely fueled the flames of my anxiety already. It was heavy. Anyway, that didn't help, let's just say that. That definitely added another load of coals onto the fire, and from there I just felt like that couple of weeks, the newbie college high that I was on, I wasn't high, but you know what I mean, like just excited, that all just came crashing down. And I actually got pretty depressed after that and had some, really scary depressed moments. And my anxiety just flared up, and it was just awful. I actually ended up transferring, very last minute decision at the end of the school year. I had actually already signed on to the next dorm room, my next dorm room at NYU for the next year with my roommate and a couple of other girls, and I backed out the last minute and I transferred last minute to UMass Amherst, which coincidentally my long distance, not a good idea, boyfriend at the time was that, but I had gone to that campus for a couple of, probably like once a month I would go for a weekend to visit him. And I just fell in love. It was an actual campus. NYU wasn't really a campus. It was a college in the middle of a huge city, so there was no actual campus. The buildings were all woven into the cityscape. So it didn't have that feel. It was New York City. Obviously, that's gonna have its own vibe. Whereas UMass Amherst was quiet and beautiful in Massachusetts with the rolling hills and the forests and the leaves and it was an actual campus, and everything more spread out and just a lot like a lower vibe. So I last minute decided to transfer there. Best decision I made for myself in college. Best decision I made for myself in college. I got a great education at UMass for a fraction of the cost. I did an art history major, psychology minor, ironically. And because it's a less renowned school, doesn't mean the professors are any less great. It's just less renowned. I actually had teachers who went to class. Like, my professors taught the classes at UMass Amherst, whereas at NYU, those professors were so like famous, they rarely taught the classes. It was mostly taught by TAs. So I actually got a really great education, especially because I picked a smaller, you know, a less popular major. Anyway, I met some great people. I made some great friends, ended up breaking up with my boyfriend finally at the beginning of the sophomore year, and started dating Dawn not too soon after, actually. And we did a long distance thing, but that was a better idea, but still. Anyway, I was in a better place, like physically and emotionally, but the stage was set. I had some PTSD, I think, from 9/11, and then just years, the, you know, formative adolescent years of anxiety with the moving and the college situation and just my personality. Stage was set. And while I felt like I did a great job with school, I got straight A's. I'm a Phi Beta Kappa or whatever it is. You know, I worked my tail off because I enjoyed it. But at the same time, I think it also fueled the flames of anxiety because I didn't let myself just be. I felt like I always had to be the perfect student, the perfect fill in the blank. So I graduated from college a semester early, come home, marry Dawn, all is great. We have an awesome first year of marriage. It was always, honestly, like one of the happiest years of my life. I just felt like all the pieces were in place. I had school behind me. I had the future in front of me. Had a great year, just kind of riding that newlywed high. And then I just started kind of crashing internally. You know, being out of school for a year, I realized that I didn't have something to focus my energy on. I didn't have any projects. I didn't have a job. I didn't need a job because, you know, Dawn, so blessed to have such a wonderful career at such a young age. And so I didn't rush myself into anything. I was like, I'll wait and see what unfolds. I dabbled in a little bit of volunteer work. I took myself on, you know, trips and stuff to kind of see different places. But even that was difficult because my anxiety just got in the way. I just couldn't get comfortable really doing anything outside of my house. I became a complete and utter hermit. That's when I started, you know, putting a lot more attention into organizing and things like that. It's just an outlet for my anxious energy, I think. A healthy outlet, honestly, I think organizing was for me. I think it can be unhealthy in certain cases, but for me, I didn't get like obsessive about it. But I needed projects. I started doing more kind of arts and crafts, you know, kind of dabbling in lots of different things. But I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with myself, and I think that really took its toll, and I let that go on for way too long. I really, honestly, in retrospect, I think I should have just gone out and gotten myself like a job. Just a job, something I could go to and do that was outside of my house, that I, you know, where I wasn't necessarily in charge. And I think that would have been a good idea for me, but I didn't. And I think just kind of becoming even more and more reclusive almost didn't help with my anxiety, and things just escalated. I didn't suffer from depression anymore, thank goodness, after that freshman year of college, but I definitely, the anxiety just went through the roof because I let it fester and I kind of let it take over my life. And without having school or a job or some sort of project to put my passion and energy and creativity into, anxiety just festered and grew and grew and grew and felt really, really all encompassing. It got very difficult for me to do anything in public at all with any social situations. And I, again, tried to hide all of this. I don't think I hid it quite as well as I did when I was younger because it was just getting overwhelming, but I really, really tried. And I joked quite a bit at this time that I could have been an Academy Award-winning actress because of the performances I put on. The mask I wore constantly, that I still, I still struggle with. I'm much better at being more kind of actual in person when my, social situations in my life now, on camera, I am 100% me, in my interpersonal relationships and things like that. But back, in my early mid-20s, no. And oh no, I was absolutely, felt like living a lie, trying to just pretend. I put so much energy into pretending that I was something that I wasn't, and that was happy and balanced, which I was not. The only thing I could think to put my energy into was exercise. And this honestly was kind of my anti-anxiety drug. I didn't take an actual anti-anxiety drug, but I did exercise a lot. And at the time, I wasn't really exercising to look a certain way, although I did appreciate that it kept me in shape. Honestly, I exercised sometimes 2-3 hours a day just to take the edge off my anxiety, and it really did work. And I don't think that was bad. I wasn't obsessive about exercising. I really don't think I was. I didn't have anything else to do, really. So that's where I put a lot of my energy. Well, things come to a head. I'm skipping over quite a bit, but things come to a head just internally. I feel like I can't deal anymore. I went to see my general practitioner for a checkup. I think I was 24, 25, or 26. I honestly can't remember. A lot of the details of this time in my life are really fuzzy because I was just really in over my head in anxiety, which completely demolishes your memory, in my experience. At least it did to mine. I have a pretty sharp memory now of things, but now I feel like looking back at that time, it all kind of feels very, very blurry and hazy. But anxiety release with cortisol and everything does a lot to your mind. So anyway, I went to my GP and I worked up the courage. It took me like years to finally work up the courage to say to him, I've been dealing with some pretty intense anxiety. I could use some help. What should I do? And I remember all he did, he took one look at me and he said, I'll write you a prescription. And right there, not being a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever, any expert in that field, he just wrote me a prescription for some anti-anxiety medication. I don't remember what it was. And honestly, I remember leaving the medical office, feeling absolutely in shock. Absolutely shocked that he would, without knowing anything about me psychologically, would just write me a prescription for anxiety medication is very powerful, and it does things to your brain. And I thought, how can somebody who's not an expert in this prescribe this to me without referring me to a psychologist or whatever, or psychiatrist? I think it's psychiatrist first. And that's when I said, that was a turning point for me, where I kind of was just avoiding dealing with my anxiety, finally going to do something about it. And that, when he handed me that prescription, I was like, I need to advocate for myself, and I need to take control of the situation myself. That was the very first moment where I thought to myself, I need to be proactive about this. It took me several months to work up the courage again, to even research finding a local psychiatrist, but I did. I went to see him. I had one session with him, I talked to him about my experience. I shared with him basically what I share with you today. I had an hour session with him. He was really kind, and I felt comfortable enough. It was very difficult for me because I was not good at talking about my emotions, something I still work on today. But, at the end of the session, and I told him about my experience with my general practitioner and how shaken I was that he had just written me a prescription. And I asked the psychiatrist point blank, I was like, do you think I need this? And after listening to me for an hour, he said, no, I don't think you need it. You could take it and it could help you, but if it's not what you want to do, I don't think you absolutely need it. I suggest you find a therapist you're comfortable with and get yourself into a therapy practice, but you do not need this medication. He did at the time diagnose me with generalized anxiety disorder, but he said, there are other ways for you to approach this. If you want to have the medication, it is there for you and it is safe for you to take, and that is fine. But you can find other ways if that's what calls you. And that was such a relief to hear. To be honest, it took me 2 to 3 years from that point to actually look for and find a therapist. This is just how long it took me to work up to things. I don't know if that's telling about my state of mind. I think it is very telling about my state of mind and just how impacted and affected I was by anxiety. But it took a long time for me to build up the courage and finally get myself there. But that psychiatrist giving me permission to take control of my situation rather than just take the medication that my GP prescribed to me without any real evidence, you know? And by the way, I never went to see that GP ever again. So, I mean, he was a great doctor, but I never went to see him again. It took me a decade to find a new general practitioner. I go to my OB every year, so I felt like the basics were covered in terms of health. But now I'm finally, just this past year, I found a GP I really, really like, and now I plan to see him once a year and have like regular blood tests and things just to be more on top of my health now as I'm, you know, in my mid-30s. But anyway, doctors have an impact. They really do. Not only physically, but emotionally. I don't have anything against that doctor, but I was shocked. I was really shocked that he would write me a prescription just like that. Anyway, that turning point for me did kind of even things out for me for a while. Instead of things crescendoing, which it felt like they were up until I saw that psychiatrist, once I saw that psychiatrist and he said those things that he said to me, I kind of leveled out. It was still, my anxiety was still like a 10 out of 10, but I didn't shoot up any further than that, and I kind of maintained that somehow for a couple of years. It was difficult, it was tough, and it definitely took a lot of energy just dealing with my anxiety every day. Around that time, I started my YouTube channel. It was July, I believe, of 2006. So that was just probably about a year later, I started my YouTube channel. That gave me a purpose and a project and a drive. I've talked about my YouTube story before. I don't think I have in a while. That could be a different video. Anyway, I started the channel and it fed that need, that hole I had in me and missing since my school days of a place to focus my energy on. And that helped a lot also with keeping me more stable. Even though I was at elevated anxiety, it was stable. It wasn't shooting up even more. So that helped a lot. I also got a puppy at this time. Winnie came into my life around that time as well. That also helped because it was something aside from me that I could take care of. I put a lot of energy into training her, and you know, we developed a really symbiotic relationship, and she became basically like a therapy dog for me for a long time, long time. So yeah, so all those things kind of started to fall into place. And then, you know, in my late 20s, I went off my birth control because I wanted to start getting ready for babies, and my skin went crazy and I had a lot of hormonal issues that definitely fueled the flames of my anxiety. That kind of is what pushed me, you know, that 2 to 3 years after seeing that psychiatrist to seeking out a therapist. And I found one. I've been with her ever since, and it has been critically important in my journey. I've seen her consistently through ups and downs. I can't believe how much I have journeyed through with this woman. I value our connection so much, and she is instrumental in helping me have an outside outlet to learn and grow with. It's like I really honestly believe that anybody and everybody could benefit from therapy, no matter what season you are in your life, no matter what you have going on. I don't think you have to have anxiety or depression or whatever to benefit from therapy. It's just really nice to have an external shoulder, or ear, I should say ear, an external ear, an external compassionate ear. A lot of the time, she just kind of is a framework of our conversations, and it's all me doing a lot of self-reflecting within that framework, and it just helps me so much, especially for me dealing with issues and continuing my growth and changes with this and expressing myself, even to myself, in terms of all emotions, happiness, sadness, anger, joy, you know, whatever, all of them. They all deserve my equal attention, and honoring all of them and not shoving any of them down. So it took a lot of work to work on that, to get to the place I am at now. So that, hugely important in my journey with anxiety. Something I started to do as I approached 30, and that I've been working really purposefully and intentionally on since I turned 30. 30 was a big turning point for me, like brain-wise, just mentally, emotionally. I felt like I actually turned into an adult when I turned 30. Something in my brain just totally shifted, and I felt like I could just be more reasonable and rational with myself, and more present with myself. Something that I started working on very specifically at that time, and still work with, although now it's become more like second nature because I've practiced it so much, is keeping myself anchored in the present moment. Part of my issues, a huge part I would say of my issues with anxiety, is I would often live in the past or the future. I would regret every little thing that happened in my past. I would overanalyze every little conversation, every little nuance, anything that happened. So this really fueled my social anxiety, right? I felt like I had to just say the perfect thing every time. I didn't want to upset anybody ever, or be a burden to anybody in any way at all. So part of my mental journey has been really concentrating on keeping myself grounded in the present. In addition to kind of regretting the past and kind of living regretfully in the past, in my brain, there was a lot of projecting, like negative daydreaming, I call it. Like a negative projecting in the future, like, oh, thinking about worst case scenarios. This is the worst thing, you know, all the worst things that could happen. And just, I have a very vivid, very active imagination, and just letting that go rampant with all the negative things that could ever happen definitely does not help with anxiety. So for, I would say, about 5 years, I stopped letting myself daydream, pretty much full stop. I did not want to let myself even have the possibility of having those negative daydreams. Now, in the past year, I think it's, you know, that there's a healthy amount of daydreaming that can be beneficial, and it's just part of, I'm a very creative, imaginative person. It's part of who I am. So I've been allowing myself to daydream a little bit more since, you know, I turned 35 last year, but even so, I still find myself automatically going into that kind of negative daydream territory and having to pull myself out of it. I'm really good at noticing it now, and I don't do it all the time, but it takes active, conscious work. So for basically 5 years, I didn't let myself daydream because I was so afraid of getting back into that negative daydreaming space, kind of where negative projecting all of the bad things that could happen that fuel anxiety in my experience. So I did a lot of mental work on this, and it's constant. I can't just like do it for an hour and be like, okay, I practiced for the day. No, it has to be all the time. And working on this very consciously and specifically for 5 years, and then just also in that time becoming a mother to 1 baby and then to 2 babies, and just aging, just with life experience and becoming older and wiser and my brain maturing, I just feel like 30 was a shift point for me. You know, 25 first shift point, right? It's the apex of my anxiety, noticing. It's interesting how things kind of happen in 5-year increments. But anyway, noticing, all right, let's even go back further. 15 years old, no, not 15, 16, So when my depression starts and the anxiety starts to creep in. 20 is, you know, midway through my college experience, floundering in anxiety. 25, the apex of my anxiety, just feeling absolutely swimming in it, like drowning in it. I see the psychiatrist. I figure out that I can take control of my situation, but it takes me another 5 years to really fully take control of it. And then the last 5 years has been my work with it very specifically. That has very, very slowly and over a long period of time decreased it. I think in a very kind of natural, easeful way. It has not been easy, but I haven't been like cold turkey on anything. And that's just, honestly, that's what's worked for me. I continue with my therapy, even though I do feel so much better. Whereas at 25, I would have said I was on a level 10 anxiety pretty much more often than not. At age 35, I would say I'm on a level 1 anxiety more often than not. Every once in a while, a 0. I never thought I would see it, a moment in any day where I felt no anxiety at all. But I catch myself, and because I am grounded in the present and make conscious efforts to do so, I can notice when I'm not feeling any anxiety. Like right now, talking about my anxiety story, I'm probably at like a 4. That's about the highest I go really on any given day lately. I don't know if you can tell, I have like a little bit of nervous energy. It's not something I've ever sat down and really verbalized to anybody in this whole encompassing way. I'm sure this is a ridiculously long video, and I do have to go get my baby in a couple of minutes here. But at 25, if you would have told me that in 10 years, I would be feeling the way I do now, just so secure and grounded and rooted and at ease with myself, I would not have believed you. I thought that that was my fate forever, was to feel the way I did. And I knew it wasn't sustainable, but I didn't know how to get myself out of it. But I did. And I really, honestly, I did have help. I did have help. Obviously, Don has helped me quite a bit. My dog has helped me quite a bit. My therapist has been hugely instrumental. And then also just becoming a mommy to kids and just life experience and the support of my family and my loved ones, who honestly I have not shared this full story with. Because again, it's just been my tendency to not want to burden anybody with my crap, which I realize now is not a way to build sustaining relationships. I think sharing is important in building relationships. And it's, you know, you can be the best listener, the best shoulder to lean on, the best whatever to anybody else, but if you are not being vulnerable with them as well, it cannot be a very I just don't think it can be a well-rounded connection if it's so one-sided like that. But anyway, that's another story for another time. I feel like I lost my train of thought there a little bit. Let's just say at 35, I'm excited for how this journey is going to unfold in the next 5 years. I feel like it's only getting better. I've been healing. I feel healed. I really do. Oh, this is where I was. And I feel like I have to honor that, yes, all of those elements helped me, but ultimately it was down to me. It was down to my desire to change. It took a long time and a lot of courage to get here and a lot of work, but I did it. And I'm proud of myself. I'm like getting a little emotional because I don't say this very often to myself, but gosh, I really didn't want to cry in this video. It's okay to cry. Another thing I struggle with is crying in front of others. I don't cry very often in front of others. And the fact that I've cried on camera a couple of times in the past year is huge because I don't cry in front of anybody, like ever. Anyway, it just means that I am growing, and I am growing in positive ways. And don't let anybody ever tell you that it's not okay to cry. Just because you cry once in a while doesn't mean you're like some hugely depressed person. It is healthy to cry. And to me, it is a sign that I am really healing if I'm able to cry in the presence of others, or even, you know, on camera. Anyway, I am proud of myself. I feel like I did it. I healed myself. Ultimately, I had to make the choices to get the help, to take the steps I needed, and to do the mental work I needed to do to get to where I am now. And I did it. And I'm living my life. I'm living in the present moment. I'm no longer weighted in fear about things I've said or done or things that might happen. I don't live in that headspace anymore, and it is wonderful. It is wonderful to breathe and be and just love and enjoy this life. That's not to say there aren't hard moments. That's not to say there aren't difficulties that I go through now. Of course, I'm human just like you, just like anybody. I have things going on at any given time, but I am just so better equipped at handling those in a healthy way and handling myself in a healthy way. And honestly, it's such important work. It's such important work, and I'm so grateful I did it. So anyway, I don't want to go on any longer because this is like an hour-long video probably. Yeah, I hope that this was helpful to you in some way. If nothing else, if you're struggling with any of these feelings, that it helps you feel like you're not alone, because you're not. There's so many of us out there that deal with these things, and you don't have to deal with them alone. You don't. You don't. I can't suggest therapy enough, like I said. I think that's a great starting off point. I do recommend seeing a medical professional if you feel like you can't climb your way out without help. That's a pretty good indication to go see. Just start with your doctor and go from there. And hopefully they don't just write you a prescription. Hopefully they refer you to an expert, or just go, you know, seek a psychiatrist if you can do so without a referral. I know sometimes you can't, but do what you can to be proactive and be an advocate for your mental health. It's worth it, not only for you, but for your loved ones, and for this world. We're all in this together. That sounds so corny, but I really truly believe that our energy contributes to the energy of our planet. I don't mean to get like all woo-woo on you, but do you know, it's hard to explain. I really do feel like it is important in our journeys, I guess I would say. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to go any deeper than that. Anywho, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are well. Again, not an expert. This is not advice, just my experience. I do advise you to find a therapist though. So that's a little contradictory. But that would be what I would tell myself. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, big hugs to everybody. You guys are not alone. We're all in this together. Let's love and support one another. Please be kind to each other. Just spread kindness where you can, because you have no idea how the smallest thing you can do can impact somebody in the biggest way. You can never really truly know that till you experience it yourself. So keep that in mind. Be kind, share love. I love you. I'll see you guys real soon. Thank you for watching, and take good care, you guys. Bye.